Myanmar, places like that. Okay, so the slide I have on refutation, I put these bullet points in order about what kind of refutation is most persuasive in this format. So the first kind is, they're inconsistent with their own principle. This is pretty much a round-winning kind of argument. The next one is, they support a principle that's horrible, i.e. the principle they support is so terrible and so bad that it should just never be supported. That's not a principle you want to live by. And then you would give reasons for that principle so bad. What would it justify? What would it ban? What would it hurt? The next one is that they would be counterproductive. They wouldn't fix anything. They'd actually make the problem they're trying to solve worse. They would generate additional undesirable effects. That's another level of argument, much weaker than you'd say, the principle's okay, the principle's okay, it would be productive, but it would cause some bad things. Generally, that kind of argument doesn't win because the principle's sound, a good one, and we'd rather be consistent with our principles than inconsistent. And then the last one, which hardly ever wins. Well, their idea wouldn't work, their plan wouldn't work, it's too expensive, it might fail, it might hurt the political, that would. All right, so next one here. Points of information. Now this is the most fun part, I think, that BP allows us to do, or World Debate allows us to do, which there's no cross-examination, and there's no moment of questioning. The way the questions work is during the middle 5 minutes of your speech, the other side can stand up and try to ask a question. And so normally, that would look like as they stand up, they raise their hand, stand up just like this, and that's how they try to get the floor. You know, you don't have to take it. You don't have to take it. You can turn them down every time if you want to. But you should probably try to take two. But the whole time, the other side will be standing up. If you're making good arguments, they'll be like, sir, on that, ma'am, on that point, on this issue. And they want you to interrupt your speech. You can yield to them. You say, yeah, I'll take your point. And then they get about 20 or 30 seconds to make an argument or ask you a question, and then they have to sit down. And you can do the same thing to speakers on the other side. So when you're listening to somebody on the other side, you can stand up and say, hey, on that point, or question, or whatever you want to do to get their attention. Some people don't say anything at all, they just stand up. And POIs, points of information, are really good ways of doing the things that I have on that list there. They're good for clarifying, they're good for setting up other arguments. One of the popular ones now is like, so would you also support doing this? Oh, free university education, would you also support giving people a free doctoral education? Or a free master's degree, would you support that as well? And then sit down and they have to be like, what is he setting us up for here? What's she setting us up for here? Should we agree to that or not? You say, oh, if you support imprisoning these people for this crime, how do you feel about this crime? And it's a way of sort of flagging arguments or maybe knocking them off of their firm foundation. The other thing you can do is flag your own principle. You can stand up on a point and make an argument and say, we think that your policy is in clear violation of this principle of government. How do you respond to that? The other way you can do it is you can use it as rebuttal. Remember, you only get one speech, so you don't get a speech to respond to what they've said. So in a later speech in the debate, if you're an opening team, you can use that as rebuttal. So if they call on you the point, you can turn and face the judges and say, remember, we gave you an argument against this. We argued this in our speeches. They still haven't responded to it. Make sure, we'd love to hear what closing opposition has to say about our arguments from the and then sit down and they can deal with it however they want. If they don't respond to you, don't feel bad. The judge knows what's going on. And then the other thing would be a red herring. You can ask a question early on that would throw your closing team off the best argument. So if you're opening opposition, you might get thrown off the trail by the closing. Closing opposition might say, wow, there's a really good argument here. Let's stand up and ask a POI about a completely different line of argument so that our opening team will take it and think that they're stealing our argument. Because an opening team can shut you out of the debate as a closing team. Because if they take all the great arguments, what are you going to offer as your extension? All you can do is really follow what they've already given. So you might be in bad shape. You have to be really creative sometimes as a closing team. So as a closing team, you can defend your ground by asking points that that would throw them off the trail, I think. Okay. So the last thing we need to talk about here is judging. So in every debate that we have 3 judges. One is called the chair, and the other 2 are called wing judges. I'm not sure why they're called wing judges. I think because they sit on either side of the chair is like their wings. I don't know where it comes from. Kind of a weird name to call it. But the only judge who will talk in the debate, the whole debate, is the chair judge. And the chair will run the debates. So they'll usually say something like, at the beginning of the debate, everyone comes in for the debate. They've had their 15 minutes of prep. The judge will say, I'd like to call this house to order. The question before us is this house would support university education being free of charge. Speaker time is 7 minutes per speaker. I'll be giving you the time signals. So after the end of the first minute, you'll hear a clap. That means that POIs are acceptable. You'll hear another clap. That means no more POIs in the last minute. And then the double clap means that you have to yield the floor to the next speaker. So without any further ado, we'll recognize the first speaker from the opening government to start the debate. And everyone claps. So the chair has a lot of stuff to say. They have to kind of run the debate, stuff like that. If a team's being too loud or a team breaks the rules of decorum, the chair will admonish them, say, order. If people start laughing, sometimes these debates are quite funny. If they start laughing, stuff like that, then they will be, the chair might say, order, to quiet people down so that the speaker time isn't lost. And then after the debate's over, the judges kick everyone out of the room, and then they will decide who won. All three judges talk together and they say, how did you rank it? How did you rank it? And they discuss, and they have to come to a consensus about who won, which means they have to kind of negotiate with each other and say, yeah, okay, I can see that, I can see that. And sometimes they change their mind, and sometimes they don't. Usually the chair is the person with the most experience, so they're kind of looked up to by the wing judges as having a better call, but it's not always the case. Anyone can judge this format of debate. You have students doing it, people from the community doing it, professors doing it, debate coaches doing it. But sometimes you'll be judged by somebody, the next week's competition, you're debating against them. It's a very open rule system. So you can either judge, or you can debate from the tournament, whatever you want to do. And in the elimination debates, after we have the break, after you do really well and you break to like semifinals or quarterfinals or something, then you might have more judges. You might have five or seven judges on the panel. And then they have to have a consensus deliberation. So sometimes these decisions can take a long time. Also at the tournament, the last slide, you have feedback forms, which is you fill out a sheet about your chair. Did they explain the debate well to you at the end? Did they explain why you won? All that good stuff. We have breaking judges. There's a bit of a side competition going on. So based on these feedback forms, the judges who will judge the elimination debates are chosen, and they're read as if they won a competition too. They'll say, now our breaking judges. Here are the judges who are going to judge the elimination debates. And everyone cheers for them. And they feel like they've done a really good job. So these feedback forms are taken seriously. Based on your comments, the people running the tournament are deciding who the best judges are. So, and then there's speaker point. Each individual performance is evaluated on a scale of 0 to 100. So you can think of it like grading. 75 is average. 85 or 86 is about what the top speaker at the World Championships gets as a average. So that kind of puts you, that'd be the best speaker in the world. Hardly anybody gets a 90 or 95 ever. Usually a good speech would be like an 83. Here in the Northeast, it would be an 83. A bad speech would be below a 65. If you're new, you might get a 68 or 69. That's pretty good. That means you're new, you make sense, but you're still figuring things out. If you get a 74, 75, it means you're about average. If you're getting like a 78, you're like, whoa, kind of rocking it. Getting an 80, I'd be like, all right, good job, nicely done. So that's the basics of it. The debates are around big principles of how we do things in society. Sometimes they're normative, sometimes they're policy principles. And the debates are about big issues. So if you like big philosophical debates about why we do what we do and why we shouldn't violate the principles of what we do, this format might be something that you're interested in. So I'm going to try not to create part of the meeting. But that's pretty much what I had to share with you. It's kind of a quick and very fast introduction to it. And I'd like to maybe open up to questions if you guys have them.
Do you have any questions? I'll try and, Steve, I'll try and aim the camera around so you can see whoever's asking.
Okay, cool.
How is the which position you take chosen?
Oh, okay. That's a great question. So, as far as the tournament goes, there are usually 5, at a British tournament, there are 5 preliminary debates. So you'll get each position ranked point. So in your first round, you might be closing opposition. In your second round, you might be opening government. The general rule is that you should have each position once during the tournament. So there are 4 debates, you'll have each one of the positions just randomly assigned, and then you get the topic after that. So normally they put up a schematic of who's going to be in what room, who's going to be what position, and then in round 5 is kind of a round to make sure that everyone's gotten one at least once, and you'll have one position twice. Here in the Northeast we do 6-round tournaments. On the West Coast we do 8-round tournaments. So it depends. So in an 8-round tournament you might get each position twice. Some people think that's fairer for the break. I don't know, it depends, but that's how it's done, so by random draw. And then speaker position, whoever speaks first or second is between you and your partner. You can change that as much as you want.
Okay. Other questions?
Yeah. I know.
We're there. That's cool. Hi.
I know in cross-ex or policy format, when you're asking questions, when you're making an argument in cross-examination, you have to ask it as a question. Does the same hold true in the points of information? Do you have to make arguments as questions, or can you just state something?
Yeah, you can just make an argument. You don't even have to pretend. You can stand up and say, usually the chair, it's called the Speaker of the House. That's what you're, the Speaker. So if somebody is like, before I move on, I'll take your point. You can stand up and be like, Mr. Speaker, we are a partner. I dealt with this in her speech. She made arguments that directly refute what they're saying. They haven't addressed them at all. We'd like to hear the current speaker, what they have to say about our argument. They haven't dealt with it at all. And then you can just sit. So that's why I say it's like a de facto rebuttal, because one of the things people who like policy debate is they miss the rebuttals. They miss rebuttals. There are no rebuttals. I always say, well, you're active, you get, they can serve as a rebuttal.
All right.
I think it's kind of fun to do.
Yeah.
If they should, and some people think from the more traditional places in the UK that it should be a question or it should be something directed at the speaker. I think it's also you can say, what do you have to say about our argument? You're not addressing our principle, what about this? You can do that, I think.
Cool.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
What type of materials do you usually have with you before you go in? Because you get the topic just a few minutes before. What type of stuff do you usually have with you so that you can have whatever prep you can for it?
Yeah, I think the best way to prepare would be to do a survey of the major countries in the world who are the big players and the big international organizations. So how's your geography? Like, do you know what countries border India? Do you know what countries border Afghanistan? Do you know what countries border Jordan? Like, these things are very important places to generate arguments. So how's your geography and where are the hot zones in the world? That would be important stuff to know. I always tell people to bring an almanac with them. It's the most useful thing. So go get like a $7 or $8 almanac. If you get some topic like, this house recruits the Australians with Bolt from East Timor, you'll be like, East where? You can look it up and you can look it up in your almanac, and then you can like really shine in the debate. Because it's perfectly fine to have these things in the debate room with you. The thing I encourage my students to do, without a lot of success, is to write briefs on this. This would be to try to find countries in the world that are controversial. Like, you know you're going to have debates about Iran, Israel, Israel's neighbors, Syria, China, Tibet, Burma, Myanmar. These are all places I would fully expect. Russia right now with the Putin thing. All kinds of, wherever there's controversy will probably be a topic. So I would say you want to know as much about people, the economy, the type of government, politics there as you can, because those are all springs of generating good examples for your principle or good examples for the arguments you're going to make. We had a topic last term that this House believes that the UK should give the Falkland Islands back to Argentina. We didn't know a lot about it. But you know, you can try your best on the principle, but nothing really stands in the way of knowing these specifics. So I would say type up some briefs about things going on in the world, print those out, carry them, and bring an almanac. Sometimes I say bring maybe like dictionary. I have like philosophical dictionary. If you have one of those, that might be good, because one team might bring up David Hume or something. That might be their principle. You might not know very much about David Hume. You can look him up really quick. And then an economic dictionary. A lot of people don't like economic debates. If you know something about Keynesian economics or Marxism or supply-side economics or different economic theories, that'll help you too. Because you can say that they are contradicting their principle because their economic model, the way that they're trying to deal with this motion, is not a proper economic model for their principle. So we had a motion in the last tournament. This House would have ended austerity measures. The idea of abandoning austerity measures means that you would deficit spend whatever you want. So it had to be an economic theory debate. And the teams that did well in that debate are the ones that had the best grasp of economics. So I'd say do that, and just kind of read international news sources and try to familiarize yourself with other countries in the world. One of the things that's hard about this is, as Americans, all of our news sources tend to look inward. They all tend to look back towards the US. And foreigners that we debate against, their news sources go all over the world. They look at everything going. A lot of countries have loyalties to African countries, so you're getting a lot of news about Cote d'Ivoire, or Nigeria, places like that, and Mali. And you're going to be behind on those debates unless you get on the internet and looking at foreign news sources. So that's what I would recommend. Is design your own and bring it all in there. You'll be good.
We have time for probably one more question. I have a question. Steve, can you tell us how the topics are chosen?
Yeah, so whoever wants to have a tournament, let's say Brian, Dr. Lane there wanted to have a tournament. He would say, I'm having this tournament, and now I need to choose who my chief adjudicator is, which is a cool name. The chief adjudicator is the person who's going to run the tournament. So they, along with the deputy chief adjudicators, whoever the other people are who are going to run the tournament with them, they choose the topics. They write them and decide when they're going to be, and they keep it great secrecy. And these people usually try to pick things, they're usually former debaters, so they try to pick things they think would be fun to debate themselves. So a lot of times being a CA is people's dream because they're like, now I can finally run that motion about whether or not we should allow clones, if we had human clones in the world, should they be allowed to vote or run for the presidency? Sometimes you had a motion, one of the debaters here said, we had a motion, one of my students, a CA attorney, made a motion, in a world where we have artificially intelligent computers, should they be given the right to vote? So sentient computers, should they vote? Like, Lieutenant Commander Data or a Terminator, should they be allowed to vote? Yeah, so it's selected by that, or by committee. Sometimes a group of people will do it if they're running the tournament together. But generally it's the CA.
Well, Steve, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
I do want to say I really appreciate it. You certainly generated a lot of enthusiasm. Would you join me in thanking you?
Thanks. I hope you give the format a try, and you can email me if you have any questions. Brian knows my email, so there you go.
Absolutely, and we'll be sending warm weather your way also.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Get right on that.
Thanks, Steve.
All right.
Talk to you later.
Take care.